Janet Maslin, the film critic of the New York Times, said about the latest film by John Sayles. It is called Lone Star, and she said it was gratifyingly complex and beautifully told. Lone Star winds up with a scope and overview rarely attempted in American films today. Every moment of the film is utterly right. Sayles wrote, directed, and edited this tale about a murder investigation in a Texas border town. Here for a conversation about this film, the filmmaker John Sayles and two of the actors, Chris Cooper, who plays the town sheriff, and Joe Morton, who plays a military man stationed in the town, and I'm pleased to have all of them here. Before we talk about Lone Star, Mr. Morton is a proud grandfather.
Yes.
Hey.
Moses, 7
Moses
pounds.
is 7 pounds.
7 pounds, 13
When
ounces.
was Moses born?
On the 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
My goodness, we'll... That's something to celebrate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me about this movie, Lone Star, which Janet Maslin is not that prone to this kind of excitement about a movie. Granted, she loves independent films. She loves the kind of what you represent, but she went deep to the well for this one.
It's very nice. I mean, good reviews are obviously better than bad reviews, which is kind of like taking something out of the refrigerator and sniffing it and saying, do you think this is sour? It can get in the way between the movie and the audience. But it is a complex film. It's the spine of it is a murder mystery, a sheriff trying to discover who killed somebody 37 years ago, and the prime suspect turns out to be his own father. And he has mixed feelings about whether he wants that to be true or not. But the story then, kind of like a Raymond Chandler novel, branches out into all the different strata of society on the U.S.-Mexican border.
I want to talk about the characters in a second, but more about what you wanted to probe. I mean, there was a question...
A lot of it, to me, was about history and the burden of history. Although it's set on the Texas-Mexican border, a lot of what I was thinking about when I was writing it was Yugoslavia. And how do you wake up one morning and have somebody come to your house and say, well, here's a gun, you're a Serb, I'm a Serb, let's go kill your next-door neighbor, who's a Croat.
Who you've known and been with for a long time.
I went to high school with that guy,
and
this is about something that happened 3 generations ago. Do I have to do that?
You know, the interesting thing, I mean, I just thought about this at this moment. When I was growing up in my hometown, there was a textile strike, and it split the town, a little small southern, down the middle, between people who worked in the factory and people who were part of the town or part of management. And we, who went to high school, played basketball, football, baseball together, knew each other, and all of a sudden, our parents were on different sides of an issue.
There are Yugoslavian athletes in the NBA right now who don't talk anymore.
Don't talk to each other.
Yeah, and they have never had a conversation about it, but all of a sudden they don't talk.
Is there a theme from all of your work that continues in Lone Star?
I think that there are some themes. There's more than one theme to a lot of my movies. One of them is about community and how we define it. You know, is it geographical anymore, or is it a community of spirit, a community of ideas, a community of people who like the Dallas Cowboys? What are those ways in which a kind of rootless, very mobile people find community? And there's also just that idea of how do you define yourself? You know?
Why do you in casting feel the need to go back and work with the same people?
Well, some of it is that...
because it's the best you can find.
Yeah, it's the best I can do. You know, you work with people before. A movie is like, you know, directing one, and all the other stuff is like juggling a lot of things. And the minute you've worked out your relationship with an actor, you know, well, this person can take care of themselves. This person can... I'm interested in seeing what guys like Joe Morton and Chris Cooper are going to do with a role. I don't know yet. If I know exactly what an actor is going to do with something, it's not that interesting to me. And these are guys who can take the ball and run with it.
And that's why you don't rehearse.
Well, it's one of the reasons I don't rehearse.
What's the other?
Well, to me, movie acting is so much about the moment. And Brother from Another Planet, so much of what you see in that movie is the first take. Now, granted, we only had time to do but like 3 takes. You know. But what I found is Joe Morton was playing a character who was mute. The other actors in the first take would start talking a little louder and get in his face, and after 2 takes they didn't do that anymore.
What character do you play, Chris?
I play the character of Sam Dees, the present-day sheriff.
And it was Sam Dees' father,
Buddy Deeds,
who was murdered.
No. It was Buddy Deeds. It was Buddy Deeds who faced down Charlie Wade and supposedly ran him out of town.
And Charlie Wade, it was his bones that they found.
Right.
And Charlie Wade's played by Chris Christopherson.
Right.
Yeah. And so what's your relationship to this story?
Well, I come back to a town that I grew up in as the leader of a soon-to-be defunct army base. But my father also still lives in this town, and he and I also do not get along together. He left my family when I was 8 years old, and we haven't spoken in 40 years. And so I'm presented with a situation because there is a crime that takes place that has to do with some of my enlistees in his bar, so I'm faced with a situation where I have to go in and confront my father for the first time in 40 years.
This scene is where your character speaks with old Sheriff Charlie Wade about the body discovered in the desert. Should I say more?
Hollis.
Yes.
Hollis.
He's speaking with the mayor.
With the mayor?
Yeah, who knew Charlie Wade.
Oh, that's right. So that's written wrong here. So
Right.
actually you're speaking with the mayor
Right.
who knew Charlie Wade, whose
Right.
body's been
Right.
found.
Right.
It makes sense to me. Roll tape. Let's take a look at this. Let me, even though it may be embarrassing to John, who's been on this program a number of times, talk about him as a director. I mean, you've worked with a lot of different kinds of directors, both of you have.
Well, being an independent filmmaker, I think economy, saving time is the big word on a John Sayles set. One of the wonderful things that John does, as opposed to other directors, it's never happened to me before. John will supply the actors with speaking roles, a 1 or 2 page single type summary, single line type summary. It fills in its bio background, fills in the empty areas, such as my relationship with the character Frances McDormand plays, Bunny, my wife. Now John has given me all this background about how she was this high energy college girl, swept off her feet, along with working for her dad in the real estate business, working for, you know, her daddy. And that's another character where Sam is, you know, in the shadow of another man. It saves time for him. I think John knows what he wants to see, and it saves a lot of time on the set.
I want to come to Joe about the same question, but you used to provide biographies.
That's which is what Chris is talking about. Yeah. And some of it is obviously because you don't want people making up one that diverges from your idea. But also, it does save that moment that can turn into a half an hour on the set of talking about where are you coming from. I expect the actors to come really have done a lot of homework and to know who they are, to inhabit the role. Yeah. So that I could change the dialogue 2 minutes before they go on.
And they would know how the character would react with the new dialogue. Set this up for me, Joe, and I'll come back to you. But this is where your character has a conversation with his father in his father's bar.
This is what I was talking to you about before. I've just come into town. I've just taken over this defunct army base, and I find out that one of my enlistees has been involved in a shootout in my father's bar. Now, it's completely appropriate as far as I'm concerned, because I think my father is just that kind of man where this thing would happen. And this is the first time I've spoken to him in 40 years. We've never even seen each other in 40 years.
Roll tape. All right. This opens around the country.
Yeah, it opens in a few theaters in a few cities, and then it kind of starts spreading around. Okay. So it's moving in from the coasts right now.
So America, it'll get to you. There's a love scene. There's a piece here which I recommend that'll be in the New York Times this weekend called Mr. Last Minute, having to do with Chris and the fact that you can always call him at the last minute. He'll come in and be able to make things work. And what you talk about, and him as a romantic lead, and this famous love scene that's in this film with Pilar, and that you sighed a kind of relief when at the end because of the dance. What was that? Well,
it's basically that this is supposed to be a relationship between Chris Cooper's character and Elizabeth Pena's character it's like revisiting Romeo and Juliet. They didn't kill themselves. They come back, 23 years later, and there had to be this incredible chemistry there. And you just don't know. You can write anything you want, you can direct it any way you want, unless that's there.
Unless the chemistry's there, forget it.
Yeah, and I basically just went to the actors and I said, everything you do from now on is about you hooking into each other. It's like a fight scene, like a sword fight scene. A love scene should be about something between the characters, not a catalog of body parts. and they just hooked in, and I just felt like, yeah, these are people who've been waiting to be this close to each other for 23 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Joe, Chris, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Hello to Moses.
Yes, I will.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you next time. See you then.